Well, hello there, my little ginger snaps. Today I'm going to tell you a story, and it's a little bit of a weird one, but we'll just get right into it. So, when I was little, I lived in this really, really, really cool house. So it was like a split level. So there was an upstairs and a downstairs, but it wasn't quite 2 stories. It had a nice full basement, and that's where the laundry room was. And it had my mom and dad's bedroom was under the stairs. Like they had a cool master bedroom under there. And then my sister's room and my room were upstairs. And we had a playroom in the middle. So, my parents bought this really cool house, and it was really, really inexpensive. Like, not to where like it was like questionable as to why it was inexpensive. It just was. Like, I think maybe the previous owners had it foreclosed on or something. But anyway, when we got the house, the previous owners really hadn't taken care of it. Like, there was water damage, and there was trash everywhere, and like it needed painting. Some of the drywall needed to be redone. I think that the kitchen was in good working order, and we obviously had to buy like appliances and stuff, but that wasn't really a huge deal because we got such a great deal on this house. And so let me preface this by saying that like I was really little. Like I want to say it was like 3 or 4, and maybe I was a little older than that. But I was younger than like kindergarten age. So I was little. And I think my sister was still in diapers. I'm not really sure. But I was really little, and I had never had like nightmares before or anything like that. Like I was a pretty chill baby. I was a pretty chill little kid in general. And so like I don't know, the house just kind of felt cold all the time. And that was weird because we had this really cool wood stove in there, and it was like a mini fireplace. And I remember being really excited about that because I thought fireplaces were like the coolest thing when I was a kid. And so like it wasn't like unbearably cold. It was just like a little bit chilly all the time. And so my parents obviously thought that it was just, since the previous owners hadn't taken care of it, that it was just like insulation that needed to be replaced or something, which makes sense. So anyway, like that was a weird thing, and then things would get moved every once in a while. Gosh, I feel like I should have a ton of stories about this house, but I really don't because I was so little. But just silly things like my Barbies would go missing. And then they'd be like in a really weird place that I wouldn't go, like under my parents' bed or in the basement, which was creepy. It was unfinished. And so like it really just had the laundry room down there. And a couple of like windows and stuff, and like the creepy one hanging light bulb, which I always thought was really weird as to why people design houses that way. Like my basement has, like I'm sitting in my basement right now, and it has like fixtures in the ceiling, and there's only one part of my basement that's unfinished, and that's another story time. But anyway, so I had never had nightmares or anything like that, and I didn't really have nightmares at the beginning of our time in this house. I just remember that my mom set me up like a little reading nook because I love to like read picture books and stuff. Like, I was little, so I was just learning to read. And so it was a lot of looking at the pictures in Dr. Seuss and stuff. Like, that was what I did. And I would color and learn my ABCs and stuff. Like, I would do that in front of this really cool window, which kind of looked like half of a box, if that makes any sense, to where like two windows went out like this and then one connected like this. So it was just really cool, and it was like this little spot that I could just sit and read and color and stuff, and it was great. I really, really loved it. And so, like, I really liked this house up until this next portion. So, things had been, like, weirdly going missing and stuff, which, you know, like, we chalked that up to I was a little kid, and, you know, my little sister was still in diapers, so, like, you know, she would be crawling around doing stuff anyway. So we just chalked it up to, you know, things get moved, and my mom's dealing with two little kids. It's very easy for things to get moved around and put back in places where you don't think that they would go. So it wasn't really a huge deal, and we didn't think about it much. And anyway, so my parents are renovating this house and trying to make it really nice and livable, since the previous owners really didn't take care of it. And there was some water damage in my room. And so some drywall needed to be replaced. Like, there was no mold or anything, but like, it bowed weird and stuff, and it looked weird. And so my parents were redoing my room. And so they set me up in the living room with the cool wood stove and the window and stuff. And I was just happy as a clam because, well, I got to hang out in my favorite room in the house. And so the weirdness started after my mom and dad took down sorry, my dog is doing something. They took down the drywall leading into my closet. So that's where the water damage had been. Like, the rest of the room was pretty much fine, but then there was just the wall my closet was on. And so, like, they took down the paneling, not the paneling, the drywall. And behind the drywall was a really old Ouija board, which is really weird. Like, they found some other stuff too, and I can't remember for the life of me what it was. I want to say it was like some other like mystical-y stuff, like maybe they found some crystals or something. I don't really know. Well, that's weird. I had hair in my eyelashes. But anyway, so they had found this Ouija board, and like my mom freaked out because like her little girl is living in this room where a Ouija board was. Like, and nobody told me about this till like years later. But this Ouija board was in my room. And so my mom, being the spiritual person she is, saged my room and then went on to try to destroy this Ouija board. And so, like, my mom was telling me this story, I want to say when I was like 16 or something, because I was curious, and it was around Halloween time, so I was asking her about scary stories. And she told me she didn't really have scary stories, but she had a couple weird ones from our first house. And so she was telling me this. And so she had asked some of her friends, and she had looked up in a couple of books and stuff, because the internet really wasn't around when I was a little kid. And so she thought that burning this Ouija board would be the way to go. Well, the Ouija board didn't burn. Like, it got scorched and it had burn marks in it, but it didn't burn. And so, while my mom was consulting with her friends and stuff, she put this Ouija board in the garage, which, I mean, that's a reasonable thing to do. Get it out of the house. But it was at that point when I started having nightmares. Like, not like nightmares, but like night terrors. Like, it was bad. And like, I was a little kid, and so like, now they don't seem as scary, but I remember one in particular that really, really scared me, because it was like the first and I'm pretty sure only time that I slept walked. And so I was sleeping in the living room because my parents were still redoing my room. They had painted like the night before, so paint was drying. And so I was sleeping downstairs in the living room. And I just remember that I was sleeping and it was all good. And then like I started dreaming that I was outside and like a storm was rolling in, like a really bad storm to where like the clouds are just really dark gray and black and like there's no stars or anything. And I remember being like concerned about that, like not scared, but like it was weird. And so I remember just like dreaming about that and just thinking it was weird. It never occurred to me that I'm standing outside on my porch and then like there were these eyes and they were just like this vibrant green. Like, do you guys remember the scene in The Lion King when Mufasa is like Cloud Dad and talks to Simba? It was kind of like that, but like really scary. So like these eyes appear and like I just hear a voice saying like, you're gonna die in this house. Nothing is ever gonna be good for you. Like, you just are gonna have a terrible life as long as you're here. And I remember being really, really scared. But what was scarier is that like, all right, the part of town that we were living in at the time was okay. It wasn't that bad. But my little like 4-year-old butt had got up, unlocked my front door, and I was standing almost in the middle of the street when I woke up, which is terrifying. Like, my parents don't know that part of the story, but like I hurried back inside because I didn't want to get in trouble. But like I walked outside, so I was for sure for a really long time that it was just, that was real. And like I was just gonna die in this house. And so like I was really scared. And like things kept going on too, like just weird innocuous things. Like you would hear like footsteps and stuff and no one would be upstairs, or you would hear like a ball rolling around or something. And again, no one was upstairs or no one was downstairs. But yeah, it was really weird. So anyway, with the Ouija board, my mom finally learned from a book that you can clear like energies or something with natural sea salt. So she did that, and then she buried the board in the yard because it wouldn't burn. And so years later, years and years and years later, my husband and I were looking for a house. And we were looking around, and this particular house that was my first house that we ever lived in was on the market. And so like I didn't want the house, but I was curious. And so I looked it up on, I want to say like Zoilla or something. Zilla or House Finder or something. One of those websites. And so I was like going through the pictures. And there was this picture of the backyard. And I noticed that under the tree where my mom had buried that Ouija board, still nothing was growing. And it was like in a small patch. But nothing was growing there. And I thought that was really weird. But it could just be that, like, because she salted the board. But I don't know. It could be something else. Anyway, like, we moved out of there, I want to say like a year later, and we moved to Montana. And I have some fun stories about Montana. Not scary ones, but I have some fun stories about Montana. And I'll tell you guys that one in another one. But anyway, so yeah, we moved out of that house, and I can't remember why, but we did, and we moved away. And I'm not sure if it was due to the Ouija board. I don't know if anyone else started having experiences. I don't know if it was a financial reason. Really, like, I have no idea about any of it. And so, I mean, like, that's a little bit disconcerting, not knowing why. But yeah, so anyway, guys, that's my one Ouija board story. I really don't have any Ouija board stories. I kind of want to play with one. I feel like I probably won't, but I kind of want to, just because everyone tells me that it's a really bad idea, and I'm curious. But anyway, guys, I'd love to hear your stories, so why don't you write me a couple of comments? Let me know what's going on in your lives. Like, let me hear your spooky stories. And anyway, guys, I love you all. If you like this, join the Ginger Snap Army. Click that subscribe button, drop me a like, leave me comments. I'd love to hear from you guys. Anyway, I love you all. I'll talk to you later. Bye!